like to thank you all for coming out and joining us and to discuss Philadelphia's growing international restaurant scene. I'd like to thank Alex Tufik from Eater Philly for his efforts in making this possible. I'd also like to thank the staff at Benjamin's desk here tonight. They've welcomed us and been very gracious. And I'd also like to thank the Pamela and AJ Raju Foundation for sponsoring the Young Friends of Philadelphia membership and program series. So a couple words real quick about some upcoming events at the council. Later this week, on Thursday, we have an event at Congress Hall called What Just Happened, Post-Election, Post-Partisan Presidential Punditry. It's been an interesting week and a half, as I'm sure everybody's very well aware. And if you're interested in joining us, we will have Chris Matola and Andy Johnson, who are political consultants from two ends of the spectrum, joining us along with David Eisenhower, who's a presidential historian and host of the council's public television series, The Whole Truth. So we'll take an in-depth look at what just happened during the 2016 presidential campaign and election in an attempt to find some common ground to rise above the extreme partisanship. Then on December 1st, we're going to be welcoming Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author and New York Times columnist Tom Friedman to discuss his new book, Thank You for Being Late, An Optimist's Guide to Thriving in the Age of Accelerations. So our program tonight was conceived because while New York and Los Angeles have been known for a very long time as foodie meccas, Philadelphia is no longer just a place for cheesesteak lovers. The new restaurant scene here with cultural influences from all over the world seem to be popping up left and right, and many of these new locales are run by bright young chefs who are changing the scene in Philadelphia, and we have a few of them here tonight. So to discuss the rapidly changing culinary scene in Philadelphia, we have Tova du Plessis, who's the owner of Essen Bakery, which is a Jewish-style bakery in South Philadelphia. Ben Miller, co-owner of South Philly Barbacoa, a Mexican eatery known for its traditional slow-cooked barbacoa-style tacos. And Anji Branca, who is co-owner of Satay Kampar, a Malaysian street food destination located on East Passyunk Square. So I'd like to start, and I apologize that our microphones seem to not be working, but I'd like to start by asking you each to kind of just talk a little bit about your background, what got you interested in food, and what brought you to Philadelphia. Anji, if you'd like to start.
Absolutely. So I'm Anji Branca. Good evening. I'm happy to see all of you here. So my background, I'm Malaysian. I came to Philadelphia in 2000. It's like almost 16 years ago now. When I came to Philadelphia, it was actually a corporate transfer. I actually come from the corporate world. And I've been in the corporate world for a very, very long time, and just recently decided this year to open up a restaurant. It sounds crazy. Everyone told me I'm nuts. But so a little bit of background. I come from a very foodie family in Malaysia. My family comes from a small town called Lacroix, and my grandmother, my mom were amazing cooks, and I call them cooks because back those days there wasn't chefs. Everyone is a cook, right? And my grandmother after World War II cooked for the whole town of Kampar when everyone came out with no place to eat, no place to go, and my mom helped in bringing the town together. So I grew up in that kind of family environment where we cooked for the community, family, and when I came here in Philly, and after being here for so many years, that's what I miss the most. Every time I see a Malaysian and we talk about our food, and we come together, and I just realize we miss that so much, and I especially miss that so much that I actually decided to go back to the environment that I grew up in, making this food to bring people home. So that's kind of what inspired me to leave the corporate world and do what I'm doing today, and I'm totally enjoying it.
Hi, I'm Tova. I'm from South Africa. I was born and raised there. And I moved to the States when I was 19 after high school. I actually South Africa because we have a really student system, and we don't have like an undergraduate graduate system like we do here. You kind of have to, if you decide you want to do medicine, you have to decide from the start, and you have to apply in your high school grades. We have no standardized testing. So that meant America gave me the opportunity to do medicine. So I moved to New York, started college there, transferred to Texas, and at some point during my degree, I realized that medicine's really not for me, and I made a bad mistake, which is another reason that our system is so bad, because you're deciding these things at 18 years old. And so I was happy to be where I was, because I actually found myself in this position where I could just choose to do whatever it is I wanted to do. And as soon as I gave myself that freedom to, just choose anything, it wasn't even a question for me. I was like, I love cooking, I love baking. I could see myself doing it as a career and forever. So I enrolled in culinary school in California, and I actually went for baking and pastry, and got an associate's there, and worked there after school for a couple of years. I was working at a really incredible restaurant, and I met Michael Solomonov of Zahav, the restaurant, one night in Philly when we were doing an event that was featuring him, and I helped him cook. And long story short, he offered me a job as a sous chef in a new restaurant in Philly, which was a great opportunity, and I knew I had to take it. So convinced my husband to move here with me. It was a big leap of faith. He struggled to find a job for a while. Now he loves his job. And I worked for Michael for a while. That restaurant didn't work out. He left, I left. But I went to a couple restaurants after that, and then became a pastry chef at the Rittenhouse Hotel. I was actually working savory for Michael, but then went back to my pastry experience where I really felt comfortable. And so I've been in Philly for about 5 years. And after I was at the Rittenhouse Hotel, while I was there, I had my daughter. So I decided not to go back to a hotel job with with a little baby. And at that point, I really had to decide, what am I going to do now? Do I wait? Do I, find another job? But then there was this, this little idea of maybe now is the time to do what you've always wanted to do. And then this opportunity popped up where this space became available on Passyunk Avenue, and I decided to go for it. And I already had this concept in my head. I already knew what I was going to do. And it's just like Angie was like, I'm just going to do the things that I grew up on that I love. And hopefully other people will love it too. So I grew up in a Jewish home in South Africa. And we would go to Jewish bakeries to pick up all our baked goods. And we would also bake at home a lot. And I really loved it. I loved babka growing up, rogalach, and those are all things that you'll find at our bakery. And there's so many more things I'd love to make. And if I had, hopefully one day I'll have the space, the staff, and everything I need to make all the wonderful things that I grew up with that actually originate from Eastern Europe. Yeah, that's my story.
My name is Ben Miller, and I want to let you all know that we have some tortas. So after we finish, that y'all didn't get to try yet. So you can try. We have vegetarian options and also some things with meat. And we have plenty, so you can take something home to your loved one at home as well. The bread was baked this morning at the restaurant El Compadre, which is the sister restaurant to our restaurant that I run with my wife, South Boulevard, 11th and Morris. And I I'm the one up here that's not a chef out of these three. The one who's the chef that would be sitting here is my wife, Christina. And I think it's a testament to the city that, you know, we have these women, these international women doing amazing food, and that Philadelphia is you know, embracing, you know, people from different cultures. And back to our story. My wife is born into a family that makes a living with cooking barbacoa, which is a tradition of pig cooking with lamb, where there's a hole basically that the fire is built in, and after a few hours, the fire cooks down into coals, and then you put a pot into the hole that's about the diameter of the hole with some water in it, and then there's a perforated top, and then the lamb goes in here, and kind of around this pit to protect the meat is these big maguey leaves. Maguey is a plant that's similar to agave, and it has many healing properties and medicinal properties. It's really a miracle plant. This gives flavor to the food also, not just to protect it, and gives flavor to the consommé. So as the meat is put in there, the lamb, all the insides of the animal are chopped up and stuffed back inside the stomach. And in our restaurant, we also mix with some pork, and this has a sausage that we call pancita, because pancita means stomach, and stomach of the casing is kind of like haggis. So these two things get cooked in this whole pollo. The word for whole in Spanish is pollo, and so that's the barbacoa de pollo. That's barbacoa cooked in the whole. So this hole is topped, and the coals are steaming this liquid, and all the steam is circulating and cooking the meat, and all the dripping from the meat are going back down into this broth, and this continuous process for 10 hours. And it's generally cooked at the home. The butchering is done at the home with live animals, and the women are making salsas, chopping cilantro, chopping onions, and the men are doing this butchering work, cleaning, building the fire. So being cooked in the home, you can smell when it's ready. And it's very early in the morning, the whole is this top, and the meat is taken out, and it's driven to a big market, an open air market, kind of like the Italian market, but like 1,000 times bigger. and you know, it's set up in a glass case with heat lamps, and tortillas are made, and then the lamb gets chopped, put into the tortilla, and the salsa and cilantro put on top, and that's the barbacoa taco. My wife grew up in a family that made their living doing this. People in Mexico know Toluca as a place that is very famous for the barbacoa, and Christina's father was the first person to bring barbacoa to Toluca. Christina's brother cooked barbacoa for a living. Cruz and her brother Paco cooks barbacoa for a living. Her brother Cruz cooks it over gas, over propane, and her brother Paco cooks it with the fire, which is more artisanal, has a better flavor, but he also does less sales, and you know, his profit margin is smaller. So I mean, there are different people in the town have different styles, have slightly different recipes, but basically everyone in the town of Capital cooks barbacoa, and so that really creates this great barbacoa economy that all these garbanzo beans are coming into town because everyone's buying some grade of garbanzo bean. So you have like great selection of the freshest ingredients, and so it makes for very, very good barbacoa. I met Christina working at a restaurant Emis on 13th Street, and there she was cooking pastry, and for the first time in her life she learned pastry, and within a few months was promoted to running the pastry station. in this busy restaurant that she never cooked pastry before, but I think her work ethic allowed her to, excel and learn very quickly, and also just being a responsible person. I think it's the same feeling I get from you, that he would offer you a job to come to Philadelphia, a character that kind of exemplifies something like that. I mean, not me. I was like an entry-level cook. I was having fun, but also, liked food a lot. I was working in different restaurants. I went to Avance to learn some things about Italian food, and learn in Mark Vettri's kitchen. I learned a lot there. Christina and I met at Avance, fell in love there, and around the same time that I left Avance, she moved in with me, and I started to learn more about her and her culture and her tradition, and eventually we started to cook the barbacoa in my house on Sundays for workers, and she would meet at Mexican Bakery. And on Sundays, people would come to my second floor apartment and buy barbacoa by the kilo. And within a short amount of time, we were cooking parties for 200 and 300 people with lambs and cooking a lot of food. And my landlady, God bless her, was living on the first floor, and so there was only so much free food I could give to her. And eventually we had to expand our apartment restaurant. And one guy who I was working with at the time at Canela restaurant, he was a busser. But one day I was riding my bike home, going to South Philly on 8th Street, and he was there washing a food cart. And I said, "What is this, a food cart?" He said, "This is my parents' food cart." And so I got the idea, and I wrote a letter to his father, and I said, can we rent this food cart for $100 a day, just drop it off in front of our house? And we had a food cart that we were selling at, in front of this bakery at 8th and Watkins Street. That went on for about a year and a half. I'm trying to speed up the end of the story here. We eventually opened a restaurant that's at 11th and Morris. We've been there for just over a year, and we haven't expanded the menu. We still just serve barbacoa, pancita, and consommé.
I think I might have gotten these to work. Possibly. Can people hear me now? All right, awesome. So I'm going to pass that to you. Might make it a little easier for everybody to hear us now. To start our conversation off, there is going to be a Q&A, so if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask our panel. But I wanted to start off and ask what you all think makes Philadelphia an attractive place for people who are interested in opening their own restaurants, people who are interested in getting involved in the culinary scene. Can you hear me?
Awesome. So, what makes Philadelphia really interesting? So here's what I see coming to Philly. I first came in 2000, and Philly back then in 2000 is very different from it is right now. Today, Philly is one of the most diverse cities. It's just amazing. I mean, just look around. You see the diversity right here as well, and that was one of the main reasons that convinced me to leave my corporate job and actually realize that I can still survive without having a corporate job and start a restaurant. To some it sounds crazy, but what I saw in the diversity in Philly and the people in Philly and the amazing appetite for all kinds of food, that's what made me realize it is the place to start a restaurant, and that's why I did it. And I was very convinced. Not many people were, but after 8 months, we've only been open for about 8 months. I managed to convince my family that it was not that crazy an idea. and I think if you come and to come to the restaurant and you look at the customers who walk in through our doors, you would also realize that it is probably one of the best places for you to start something, start a restaurant or a business, especially a restaurant, because of the kind of diversity we have in Philly. And on top of that, it's not just about the customers who walk in. It's not just about the customers who would walk in and appreciate what you do. It's, for chefs, for cooks, one of the most important thing is the ingredient that's available, the palette that's available, the kind of food and the flavors that you can make. And there are not many places in the world where you have all these ingredients and palettes and chefs of all backgrounds and cooking techniques that you're going to hear, from all three of us. We have entirely different cooking techniques. We use entirely different ingredients. It's all here and available, which is absolutely amazing. There are not too many places that actually has that. And if there is, it's not affordable for us to start a business. So Philly is very uniquely situated right now, very unique in the sense that not only do we have the customers who are so open and really want and hunger for these different kind of food, we have this palette of ingredients and techniques and chefs right here next to each other. Even on East Patrick Avenue, you will see how different we all are and the amazing collaboration that you can get as a restaurant owner.
Yeah, second what she said. I was also going to say something about the diversity in Philly. We have like pretty much every culture, every country, nationality represented in Philadelphia, which is pretty awesome. There are foods that I've only become familiar with in Philly, like since living in Philly. I never ate at a Cambodian restaurant before I came to Philly. Or others, or other African countries. I'm very familiar with South African food, which is completely different to North African food. I think what makes Philly so unique in the food world is that we have a lot of great things going on in food. We have a lot of talent and a lot of interest. The people, I think the public is really looking for new and interesting and also really high quality food. But at the same time, on the flip side, we're a major city on the East Coast, but it's kind of affordable to live here. And it's kind of affordable to even open a restaurant here. It's doable, which is pretty awesome because, as far as food cities go, on the East Coast, people want to go to New York and Washington and Boston, and they're crazy expensive. I mean, I think there's a problem now with what cooks get paid and not being able to pay their rent with what they're being paid in, for example, New York City. But in Philly, you can really have a really decent, standard of life here on a cook's wage. You can make your rent, and you can even live 10 minutes away from your work. You can live in West Philly, in South Philly. You could be 20 minutes away on, by bus or any, which I think is very cool, and I think it's making it doable for a lot of people. And I think Ben is like the perfect example of how you can start a business on like nothing and change. And I can tell you that I started my business, he started with a card, so that's really small change. But I started with this little storefront, and I started with 25 grand. That was my buy-in. So, and I know I will need money in the future to expand. I know I'll need to look for partnership and investors. But what I'm already doing on 25 grand is, I think, incredible. And I think I'll find those investors because they see what I'm doing already, how I've turned around that 25 grand already. So in New York City, I don't think I'm opening a bakery with 25 grand.
also that you're immensely talented. So one point that I thought was important was that we're close to some of the richest, most fertile farmland in the country in Lancaster County. And we have farmers that serve our city with really great stuff and work closely with chefs. We have a farmer who is growing a very special corn for our restaurant. He's growing 5 acres of an indigenous corn from Chiapas that he went down and, you know, got the seed and brought it back here and planted it. And we're able to work on these kind of projects, which really enhances our food. And it also ties it in with a story, it ties it in with a political story. And so that's one big thing I think is, you know, because you have this, both things go hand in hand, but I mean, it's great to have Lancaster County so close with great farmers. And Philly is a pretty cool city, I think. You know, and for a lot of reasons outside of the restaurant world. There's great music, there's great art, there's really good culture. We're close to New York. The mayor's progressive. It's a fun place to be. And so that's another reason why I think you know, Philly's a good situated place. Yeah, that we have educated diners here that are willing to eat different things and try different foods.
Thank you. Why do you all think it's important for, particularly for young chefs and young cooks, to get involved in the community and engaged in local cuisine and our community here in Philadelphia? Any of you are welcome to start. Yeah.
Change it up.
Sure. Why is it important for young chefs?
For the
to
young
be
people.
involved?
I think mentorship is really important in a trade, and that's what cooking is. And it's not about going and working at a restaurant for a year and then going to another restaurant and working for a year and learning something here, learning something there. Apprenticeship is spending years with a person learning the craft. And you're not only learning the craft, but it's also learning the intersectionalities with the craft, like the politics, but also with all the other worlds, with the artistic worlds and the creative worlds and all the different kinds of business things. And so it's important to have mentorship, and that there are chefs here that give that opportunity. That's important for you.
Yeah, I think what I have come to realize is that there is a really big advantage to working for a small business. As much as it has all those disadvantages, they don't have, they can't offer you health insurance and, all these great benefits and things that you want that do give you stability in your life. But what you get from working for a small business is exactly what Ben's saying. You get that mentorship, and the people you're working under will talk to you a lot more about the struggles that they face and the things that they need to do to be successful. My very first job actually, in order to go to culinary school, I needed to have 6 months experience. It had to be full-time working in a restaurant or bakery where they made everything from scratch. So I was in Houston, Texas, and I just started emailing every bakery, cafe. I made a list of 50 places to email, and nobody wanted to let me work for free because I had zero experience. It was my very first job in the food industry. So this one guy said, sure, you know what, why don't you, try out. I'll train you. And after like a month or two, we can talk about
I think that he was just such a like ethical guy. He didn't like the idea of not paying someone, but he was fine with like free labor for a couple months, and then if you deserve it, you'll be paid. And it's exactly what happened. About 6 weeks after I started, he sat me down and he said, okay, I'm going to offer you $10 an hour. And I worked for him for 6 months in order to go to culinary school. But he was a tiny business owner. He made cookies and he supplied them to, he wholesaled them to coffee shops. And I learned more from him than I did and from anyone else that I worked under. And this experience that was before culinary school even, I think was the greatest education that I got. Because I was able to talk to him about everything he did, why did he structure things a certain way, why was he making the decisions he was making on who he was going to hire, how he was going to train them, what accounts he would go after, how he's going to expand, all these things that you have to, the decisions that you have to make as a business owner. And funny enough, he's opened 2 retail stores since then, and with each one he's asked me to come back and manage a friend, but I'm not going to Texas. That mentorship is extremely important, but I also think it's really important for young people to get involved in, I think what you were talking about with the way we get so much of our stuff from local farms. We even have local mills that we get grains from. And the more that we can expose young people to that, the better. And I think Philly, there is the opportunity in Philly to really get that education because we buy so much from our local farms. And I think besides for working for small businesses, I think a great experience you can really offer to a young person in the industry is learning about where their food comes from. And everything about it, whether it's produce from your farms or proteins and how they're, how the animals are raised, and grains, how they're milled, and what makes each one unique. I think it's the best education you can get, really.
So the reason that I think that young chefs should be more involved, it comes from a very different angle. Not so much from the angle of a chef, but more from the angle of society. I talk about diversity. With diversity, it also there is also segregation, right? In the most diversity, there could also be one of the highest segregation of communities, and quite often when somebody shares a food, shares a culture, or experiences food and culture that is not from our own background, we start to chip down those walls of segregation. We start to chip that down. We start to experience some other culture and receive it and understand it better. And I feel that when we get involved, especially chefs, when we get involved more and more in events where we come together collaboratively in situations like this, or even do collaborations where we actually have a chance to showcase the background of our food and our culture, it is important for the society. It is a very subtle voice, but a very, very loud voice for our society to actually slowly understand each other's culture and actually accept it and receive it. And it's even a better voice than actually just speaking out loud, because it's an experience that you can't forget. And being involved in a very diverse culinary community like what we have here in Philadelphia, it's really going to break that segregation wall faster and bind us all together even quicker than we imagine.
So
where do you see the future of Philadelphia's culinary scene moving toward, and what do you think future decades have in hold for Philly?
But with what we have in Philly, with the very progressive area that we have, and the fact that Philly is a sanctuary city, I really see more and more of this diversity happening in Philly. I see more people coming together and really speaking out loud about their culture and cuisine. And I was talking to Tova earlier today. I find that it's really amazing that in this city, very walkable city, where you can basically walk anywhere within half an hour, you would find restaurants from all around the world. And coming from Southeast Asia myself, it's amazing that just in South Philly, you will find Indonesian restaurants, Cambodian restaurants, Malaysian restaurants, Thai restaurants, Vietnamese restaurants, and not just okay restaurants, really, really good ones. And when I came in 2000, I remember talking to my husband about, I really crave some Chinese food. But back then, Chinese food is just Chinese food. Today, if you want to get Chinese food, you gotta be specific. you gotta talk about, Sichuan, Shanghainese, Hunan, Cantonese. It's not just Chinese food anymore, right? And this is not gonna stop with the way Philly is becoming. It's not, and that is really amazing. And there's so much more room to be diverse and so much more to grow, and it's really, really exciting.
Well, I think, going along the same lines, the people of color restaurants, immigrant restaurants, different sorts of ethnic cuisines, food from around the world is what's going to continue and going to be even stronger here in Philadelphia. And that's because we're going to push for it. We're going to push the food media to cover more people of color restaurants. I have an example of two Mexican restaurants. One is owned by an immigrant family that's cooking for immigrants, and the other is owned by a white person that's clientele is mainly white people. The Mexican restaurant that's cooking in their own community may be making less money. The people that they're serving might be making less money. They might not have access to the organic and pastured foods and the more expensive vegetables, but their creativity and their food and their service and their hospitality is on par. But the one who is getting the attention from the media is the white-owned restaurant. And they're the ones who are being able to succeed. They have the money behind them. And so we need to, I think, push our food media more to cover people of color that are working in this industry. That it's not just white people that are doing a lot of things. I think this panel is exemplary of that, and I think our city is exemplary of that, and I think going into the future, these businesses will continue to thrive because our communities will support them.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
First of all, Haley and the three of you, I want to thank you for an incredible program. This is very interesting. We had our South Philadelphia Day this summer. We didn't get to your place yet, but we started with the tacos, and I learned how to eat a tamale. You showed me how to do that. And then we went to Essen Bakery. It's just really wonderful. We can't wait to go back. But I've heard, and tell me if this is true, that the great, like you work for the veterinary organization, you work connected with the Saha people. Are they very supportive? From what I've read, they're very supportive for people getting experience with them and then supporting them and encouraging them to open up their own restaurants. Is that true? I don't know if it's that or not. In terms of the cigar, if you could say.
I can't say that is true, although I don't know what your experience is, but although Michael would be very happy for any success that I do have, I think that those guys are so big, if you want to call it that. They are so busy. They have such big ambitions, and they're doing so much that we don't get much attention. We don't get much mentorship, which I kind of understand, because how much can they do, or how much can one person do already? But as much as Mike and Steve, for example, would be really supportive, and they would come and visit and they would congratulate me, they didn't really foster that entrepreneurship in me didn't come from them. And I think it's because they're just so steadfast in their goals and ambitions that they're not really taking the time to mentor their younger chefs. So it ends up being something that you kind of have to, you kind of have to have your own goals and just persevere and make it happen for yourself.
I'd like to respond to that too. So while Christina and I were working together at Avance, she was fired for when they found out that she was undocumented. Part of the story of the barbacoa is that Christina walked across the desert to get here. And she's been able to put her daughter into medical school for her sacrifices and being able to support her from here without being able to go back and see her. But we had a bad lawyer that gave us bad advice that says, the fake social security card that she used to get the job, should stop using that. So we talked to Jeff Benjamin and Brad Spence, who were running the restaurant, and we said, Christina's undocumented, and we want to try to figure it out so that as we're going through our marriage and trying to get legalized and do things the right way, the lawyer advised, and said, well, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Come back when you get that all figured out. So which was very hurtful and sad, Mark Fetcher's never been to my restaurant.
It's just awesome,
Any other questions from the audience?
Well, I'm a student from Bodine, and I also wanted to open my own bakery, but this question is for all three of you. Did y'all have any fears, and what were you scared about when you first decided to open up your restaurant?
Oh my God, everything. I'm still afraid. I think my biggest fear is not hitting my numbers, because I should say my biggest fear is not being able to pay my employees. Because if I don't have a certain amount of sales every day, I just won't be able to pay them. And luckily I've made it work until now, and thank God, actually, sales have just been slowly increasing, so things are looking good. But then I have to, be realistic and say, because July, August, for example, was really slow and difficult to get through, and I have to be realistic and say, listen, February is also going to be tough. I have to, you have to brace yourself for tough months, because there are just times of the year that no one goes out. And so that is my biggest fear, is that those times, you can have times where everybody's approaching you and they all want you to cater their, bar mitzvah or whatever, and you'll have 10 things going on in 1 week, and it seems great, but you also have to plan for months where it could just be dead. And what I've realized, and I didn't know this going into business, but now I realize that there's a reason that people tell you to look in locations that have high foot traffic. Those locations are too expensive for people like us, for all of us. But what happens with us is that we have to draw people to come to us, because on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on East Passyunk Avenue, there are not that many people walking by. So, you really have to drive those sales, and it's really not easy, especially in July, August, February. What's yours?
My response, echoing that fear, yes, I had a lot. I had a lot from all different angles. You know, leaving basically a job that I had, which was pretty stable, and on top of that, you know, family and friends basically instilling more fear into me, saying that it's absolutely nuts. But you know, that's the kind of thing that I think as any business owner, starting your own business, we need to have that amount of fear to really think about the survival of the business. Because one of the things that I realize is it's not, you know, when you run a business, it's not just about it's not just about my goals, it's not just about my dreams, it's also the people that I employ. It's also, you know, when you put so much into your dreams, financially, yourself as well, you also put your employees, your partners, your suppliers, everyone that supports you in that same risk that you are. So fear is something that I think is fair to have. I think we all should have that. How do we mitigate that? It's probably one of the most important things. And I come from obviously a very different background. I was a business strategist, so the way that I mitigated that fear was to sit down for months and months and months and write my business plan. That is what I spent so much time doing. My husband John thought that I was crazy because it was just all on paper. It was just like math on paper. But that calmed me down, and that actually helped to validate and gave me some direction on how to address a lot of the risk that you're going to face. And of course, you know, when you do a business plan, and if many of you are going to culinary school or business school, or, you know, I hope that you learn about writing a business plan and business strategy. Take that seriously. I have to personally tell you, take that very, very seriously. Because when you have that written on paper, it really challenges you to think about not just the possibilities, but what if you don't hit those numbers? What if something else happens? Can you realistically hit it? And it really forces you to basically dot all the I's and cross all the T's. But I do have to tell you frankly, I mean, over many, many years of writing many corporate business plans and my own, there is also a chance of being unrealistic about the plans, because we always believe that our dream will always work, and why shouldn't it? And that is one of the biggest risks in writing the business plan, and you should always pack that in. But it forces you to think through that. And if you are worried about starting your own business, I would say start with writing a business plan to clarify for yourself and to help validate those worries that you have. And if you need any help, I'm happy to help. Free service, because I'm no longer a consultant. but you know, it's one, I think, very important thing that we all should do.
And find a partner.
I just wanted to ask kind of a follow-up question to what you're talking about. How did you estimate your numbers when you were first starting in writing your strategy?
Okay.
The short version.
The short version. Yeah, the short version of it. How did I estimate my numbers? Well, the thing is, you know, you first start with the size of your operation and how you want to run it, right? It gives you an idea of what you hope to achieve in your turnover. It could be determined by the location that you pick, the size of the restaurant that you own, how much are you capable of doing first. It starts there, right? And then you validate that with, is this realistic? You start to, you know, test those numbers. You could. There's so many ways of testing those numbers and looking for a realistic number of whether you can actually achieve them. But to find a way of setting your limits is where you start, and then back out from there on whether or not you can achieve your maximum limit or or not, and if you can't, how do you get there? If you understand what I'm trying to say, yeah. So that's where you have to find what are your limits, because that is your maximum capacity, right? So if I can turn out 100 sachets a day, that's my maximum capacity. I can't do any more than that. So that really tops, like that's where my revenue is, and then you back it out from there and figure out, can you actually achieve that limit or half of it, and what if you just achieve half of it, then what happens?
Is there a book that you read that you recommend?
I think
For
that-
restaurants?
No, not for restaurants. I don't know if, a lot of the books are actually things that you would learn in school, in your class, in your business studies. But it is, the one resource that really helps is if you go to the small businesses website, there are some business plan templates. Rather than actually, reading through books, is really to go through writing one yourself. I think that is the easiest way that, for me, that's the easiest way to get started. That's the easiest way to learn, because if you go to the small businesses website, there are templates there with all the chapters and all the different things that you have to think about. And when you go through and force yourself to sit down and write, and it's not going to be one day, it took me months to think through all that. Those are things that no one can teach you, no one can really help you. The template gives you the guidelines, but a lot of it is really for you to actually put your action into work.
We came to do what we were doing at our restaurant from such a different angle. We were cooking in our home, like I said, and when we bought our first lamb, this was shortly after Christina had lost her job. Like, that was all the money that we had to buy this lamb, and if we didn't sell it, we had no more money to cook next week. And and we sold it, and we used a little bit of a profit to buy an extra pot, and then we sold again, and then we grew very slowly, very intentionally. But we only expanded when we had overcome our capacity, and really, it didn't matter any of the things that I thought through. It really came back to the faith that Christina had in her food, we just have approached it a different way. But to talk again to the question about fears, my fears were, is my neighbor going to see me like walking in the house with a lamb over my shoulder? Like, we had some legitimate concerns and fears in the restaurant. I mean, I still deal with fears and things like that about different things, but it is nice to be in a commercially licensed kitchen.
We have time for one more question.
This is more a question for you. Given the current political climate, do you feel a responsibility to hire and employ and make yourself available to the immigrant communities in Philly? And do you feel a responsibility to kind of be involved in the social justice efforts surrounding immigration, specifically, I guess, because your wife is Mexican, given the recent election stuff?
We viewed the restaurant and the platform as a platform. The way that we're getting attention for the food, it gives us an opportunity to inject, a political agenda that we have, which is important for us. So, as far as do I feel a need to hire an immigrant community, I will say that it is illegal to hire someone that doesn't have the right papers, and we're working to get some local legislation passed. We're working to organize nationally to get some pressure on the federal government. That's what we can do. But our own restaurant, we've been for the last 3 months working with a study group that's teaching us about cooperatively owned businesses. It's a 6-month course that's paid for by a grant, and we have access to resources and other people who own and operate cooperatives in and outside of the United States, and to learn about that, because it's not illegal to own a business. And so if we can make all of our workers co-owners, you know, and it's sort of the kind of thing, the way that I understand it at this point is that you're paid off of a projected profit, you know, like a, so you say, we think we're going to make this much, and so it's not actually an hourly wage you're actually getting, and then at the end of the year you have to settle it. But you know, it would, it's a departure from the capitalist model of the restaurant, and it's curious that it's not generally taught in business school. You know, I talk to people who know about business, and you know, but it's only really capitalism that we're being taught in this, you know, educational model. So this might work for us. We're checking it out. We have a lot of sweat equity and capital invested in the restaurant. So like, how do we transfer that to the group and be recouped for our investment? But it's something that I'm looking at that we can do with our restaurant, and then apart from that, just be a voice for people that are undocumented working in restaurants.
I just want to say that this is a very sad state of affairs because we're living with this reality now that there's a good chance that our borders are only going to get tighter. And we wouldn't be able to have this discussion today about the diversity in the food culture in Philadelphia if not for all our immigrants. So it's just sad.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight and thank everyone here.